What is going on at the sheriff's department? I am watching these news stories where they are blaming ICE for not coming and getting an illegal immigrant who just raped a woman that he lived with in front of her 5-year-old son. He gets arrested for this crime, and the sheriff's department says that they can't hold him because he's an illegal immigrant. So what they do is they call ICE at 1:30 in the morning. This is exactly how that went down. They literally only wait 1 hour and 30 minutes till 3 o'clock. Mind you, this is in the morning. An ICE hold is good up to 48 hours. This guy gets released, goes directly back to the apartment of the woman that he just raped. Imagine being this 5-year-old son who just watched that happened to your mother, and then just a moment after comes back to the actual house. Now the sheriff's department is trying to blame ICE for not coming fast enough. We are operating this jail as if we are a sanctuary city, saying that we can't do anything about illegal immigrants. The guy just raped someone. Imagine if you had parking tickets. They hold you all day long until you pay that money. Now they're sitting here and blaming ICE for not coming fast enough in the middle of the night. PD Taylor, it is time for you to resign. It is time for this sheriff's office to take accountability. That's why I went down to the courthouse whenever we were getting it switched over to the jail trust to make it abundantly clear that this was being mismanaged. And this new undersheriff, Will Blake, where are you guys' action to get this stuff fixed? For us to be approaching illegal immigrants who are raping people and just allowing them to walk the streets moments later and then shifting the blame to ICE, who luckily were on top of it and apprehended the guy shortly after they got released. So he is in custody. Kudos to ICE. Stop shifting the blame and take some accountability for what's happening down at that jail.
CDLUniversity.org. At CDL University, and another success, another one drives a truck. Hey, gonna help you too, another one drives a
Darren Miller, CDL University. For some of you, it's already too late. You're standing over in a dirt field, waiting in line to back a truck, and it's been 3 weeks now. If you're gonna do this, do it right. Come to CDL University. Get your CDL.
Hey guys, welcome back. Dan Belcher. Just wanted to wrap with you a little bit more. We've pretty well been doing the Confrontational Conservative podcast, essential series, just to kind of give you a little bit more equipment whenever you're dealing with these Democrats and these liberals. What I wanted to kind of go over is a little bit of interaction that I've been having with a particular Democrat, Kendra Horn. And what I actually did was we had an anti-impeachment gathering, or I guess you'd call it a protest or a rally at her office yesterday, which I was there as well. And we went ahead and we're putting some pressure on Kendra Horn to how accountable we're going to make her if she is a yes vote on impeachment. On Monday, this is actually before any of this happened, I actually penned an open letter to Congresswoman Horn. And essentially what I said was directly to her that if she votes yes on impeachment, that we're going to call for her resignation. She has been continuously going to coffee shops around Oklahoma. She's been telling the Oklahomans that she represents that she does not support impeachment. And if she votes yes, then that is a direct lie in the face, a smack in the face to the people that she's been talking to over the last couple of weeks. Now, there is another play for her and the Democrat Party that would allow her to vote no on the impeachment vote, because there are so many Democrats, because they hold the majority in the House, that they have about 16 or 18 extra votes that don't have to vote yes, and they still open up a formal impeachment inquiry. So they may come back and allow those moderate Democrats to vote no, just to be able to save face in their own district, and also to have a chance to hold on to that seat. Because if she votes yes on impeachment, I don't even know that she makes it to November, because the war drums that I'm going to be beaten calling for her resignation, and the grassroots, you guys, I don't think she makes it that long. But even if she votes no, then we're still going to put pressure on her to actually follow up with that no vote. And so the expectation of her district is that if she votes no, that she better put all of the emphasis and effort to at least be an obstacle to her own party on the impeachment itself. So there's no in between to where you can say, okay, well, a yes vote, you're done anyways. A no vote better be coupled with some resistance to your own party, because just a no vote and then you just go on about your business is not enough. What it is that they're doing to President Trump is unlawful, it's illegal, it's corrupt. They're doing everything behind the closed doors. They're utilizing different people, this Adam Schiff, to head up this investigation. It's just unreal. But this brings me back to, again, the controversial conservative. That's how we have to play this. We have to be in their face and going to them directly and putting them on notice. But the problem with Republicans up to this point, in my opinion, is the follow-through, is to actually hold their feet to the fire for what it is that we are saying that they should do. So whenever we, as the 5th District, go and say, hey, we're against impeachment, well, then if she votes yes on impeachment, well, what's the consequence? That's the problem, is that we are so used to shying away from confrontation that when it comes time to hold their feet to the fire on the consequences, now we let up. We say, oh, well, maybe another day, maybe another battle, maybe another war. There is no other war. There is no other battle. They're trying to impeach our president. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to drop a survey as well. And this actually transitions and pivots off of Kendra Horn, sort of, but back onto the National Education Association and the Oklahoma Education Association, which are, her main lobbies. But they are actually calling for the teachers union themselves, the teachers and the teachers union, to back the background checks on the guns. So they are actually trying to organize again. You remember, we've talked about this multiple times, that's how Kendra Horn got in the seat in the first place. That's how this biggest tax increase in the history of the state happened in the first place, was the organization of the teachers union themselves. So I'm actually putting a petition together to send to the NEA and to send to Congress and to send to the appropriate people to tell them to stop trying to lobby for additional gun control, for additional laws that are not going to stop any one person from going into a school and doing what it is that they've been doing. We have laws that are on the books already that aren't being enforced, which, in my opinion, there's way too many laws whenever it comes to gun control, but they're sitting here and trying to activate that same exact union and that same exact lobby to extend and to make more gun laws. So I've went ahead and I've been putting out to the teachers, you guys know who is in your organization. You guys know that the NEA and the OEA, they've taken this too far. So we have got to activate the resistance within your own teachers union. And I'm just waiting for someone who's involved in that organization to take up the mantle, because they've taken it too far. They've utilized this lobby. They've utilized this organization. They've utilized this teacher block vote to do too much damage. And we've got to activate the resistance within that union to be able to combat this. So I just wanted to kind of relay to you the organizing outside of Kendra Horn's office yesterday. What went excellent, and it was really refreshing to see how many people showed up and the amount of emotion and the amount of energy that was exhibited. And we're going to have to continue that, because what they're doing in the House is a sham. What they're doing is not only illegal, they're essentially trying to utilize a tactic of show me a man and I'll show you his crime. It's just going and searching for the crime that's been committed after you file the charges. So it's just unreal how it is that they're continuing to proceed forward. And I think that it's going to backfire when all is said and done. But we've got to continue to push our agenda forward to take ground, because as you guys have seen, us to be on the defensive is not working. And so these Democrats, they need stomp opposition. And so you guys, I know you are staunch supporters of Oklahoma Taxpayers Unite. Go to the Patreon, donate, share, like the page. Dan Belcher for Congress, go donate, go and volunteer. We are really gaining traction, and we are really making a name for ourselves as a representative of the grassroots average Oklahoman, because that's who I am and that's who I resonate with. Is I'm in the trenches with you guys. And so I'd love to have an opportunity to meet with you guys individually or in groups, however it is that it works out. But I'd love to meet with you and get you involved, because what it is we're doing is an alliance of organizations that are the fundamental truths that are American liberty. So I'd love to see you guys get involved, and I'll circle back with you next week.
Introducing all new, safe, natural relief. A cannabinoid-rich, clarity and focus formula with 17 essential supplements. When it matters most, you've got a job to do. Anxiety isn't an option. Programmed to keep you moving. A product exclusively manufactured for Active Duty RX by Cantech Labs.
Hello, basket of deplorables, ladies, gentlemen, those who are undecided. Todd Tucker back at the bunker, where I belong. And we want you to join us here at OTUmedia. Become a patron, a Patreon member. If you want true conservative messaging and not the same old corporate filtered news of Oklahoma, this is the place to be. Become a supporter, a soldier, a sergeant, a co-producer, even a sponsor. True conservatism lives here at OTUmedia. Go to patreon.com/OTUmedia, patreon.com/OTUmedia. This is where conservatism lives, and the fight is just beginning.
Welcome back. This is Dan Belcher. I am Congressional District 5 candidate, and I am going over a series with you guys called Confrontational Conservative. If you'll remember last week, we went over 2 bullet points that were in the first 2 chapters. We are really going to get into the meat and potatoes of debating a liberal. Today, you guys are going to enjoy it. So just to kind of recap on last week, what we talked about is the fundamental makeup of a conservative and how that actually is a disadvantage to us whenever we're debating. Now, we also went in to the fact that when a liberal is in debate, they only have one objective in mind, and that is control. So what we're going to do is, as we kind of add bullet points to what it is that we're doing, we want to put those as bullets in the gun, essentially. We want it as tools in our tool belt. So every time we actually encounter one of these controversial situations, we are going to have a checklist that we're going to go over before we actually start. Because we have to get our brain prepared. We have to turn that switch off to make sure that we understand and are very well equipped to go into the debate right when we get started. So as we proceed forward, as we continue to add tools to our tool belt, then we'll go over them and we'll say, okay, this is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3. So today what we're actually going to talk about is a little bit more on how each side views conflict, how they view confrontation, because the way that we view it is exactly how we use it in a confrontational conversation. So whenever we go into the actual views of conflict, a conservative, as we talked about before, views that negatively because we have an adverse reaction to conflict. We were raised that way. So the difference is that the liberals have a very positive view of confrontation, and you guys are really going to enjoy the way that this book breaks this part of it down, because it's very simplistic and it really sheds light on exactly what the motive is of the liberal and the leftist agenda, because this is exactly what the Democrat Party does day in and day out. What they do is they start out as an overkill with confrontation. So essentially what they're going to do is they are going to throw out the most outlandish presentation of whatever it is that you guys are talking about. So they are going to throw every piece of mud at the wall to be able to see what sticks, because what's going to happen is whenever they go and they present an argument in a manner that is so over the top that it's almost barely believable that they would even present it in that manner, but it's done deliberately, because then what's going to happen is they're going to back off a little bit of that craziness. So now they've thrown out this monstrosity of a proposition, and so our first reaction is to kind of be taken aback, to where it's like there's no way. But what they do is they actually back off of it, and then they say, oh, well, instead of this much, we'll settle for this much. So I use a story, and they actually use this in the book. So let's just say that you're taken at gunpoint by a robber, right? So they've got the gun to your ribs, and they take all your money, take all your credit cards, take all your passport. And then after they get done robbing you, they come back to you and they say, oh, well, here's your credit cards back. Here's your passports back. They keep the cash. Oh, we're not going to use this. So then essentially what happens is whenever you're filing the police report, you're telling the police how nice of a guy the person that stuck you up was. Because what they did was they presented it in such a hard fashion, they back away from it, and then now you come back and you say, okay, we're caught off guard right at the beginning, but then at the end we can say, oh, well, it wasn't as bad as I thought. We can live with that. We can live with that. But that's the exact tactic that they're using to actually bully Republicans. Because what they do is they come in with nothing but extremism and incrementalism. So essentially what they do is they push it as far as they can possibly get it, as outlandish as they can possibly be, and then they back it back down. But they don't back it down all the way. So they've pushed for as much as they possibly can. We allow them to do that as conservatives. And then what we do is whenever they come back to a more realistic place, we've still given them that inch. We've still given them what they came for. And so that's where we get the extremism coupled with the incrementalism, to where they take it an inch at a time. But they ask for, whew, and then they bump it back down. But they took an inch. They do it again. They took an inch. So another thing that's called, it's known as the Overton window. So that's essentially their setup for debate and confrontation, because they know that if they go far, we're going to respond to that in a confrontational manner, to where we're taken aback because the controversy is so high. But whenever they back it down and offer us a solution, well, then we disengage. And essentially we breathe a sigh of relief, because guess what's gone? The confrontation's gone. But what happens is we have given them that ground because they're manipulating our emotions. So we're going to switch over to the other side here, and we're going to actually go into the definitions of what compromise is. And it's two types of, should have two types of definitions. It actually only has one in the Webster's Dictionary, but there's two types, because one is the application of compromise, and the other one is the principle of compromise, to where application is going to be just daily living, to where you really the consequence of that compromise is not very high. So the author actually uses a good example on that as well, to where, he and his wife go out to see a movie, and he decides he wants, an action flick, and she decides she wants a love story, and then they make a compromise on a comedy. That's the application of a daily life compromise, of which the implications are not very high. But then we've got the principle of compromise. So this is something that makes up our very being. This is something that is the fiber of who we are. So let's take the Second Amendment as an actual principle compromise. So we look and we say, okay, here's the Second Amendment. They go as far as to say, oh, well, we want to collect all guns. We want to register. We want to make, bump stocks illegal, semi-automatics, everything. So we want to take your guns away completely. Okay? Come and take them is what I say. But this is just for the sake of argument. So they shoot for the stars, right? On the Second Amendment argument. They're going to say, hey, we're going to take your guns. We want you to register them. We actually only think that the government should have them. That's their far-fetched ask. But then they come back and they back it down and they say, okay, well, we're not going to take your guns, but you got to register them and you got to have a background check. And we're just like, oh, well, that's pretty reasonable. That's pretty reasonable. But what we've done is we have given them that inch now on an absolute principle. And that's where we've got to stop allowing them to gain ground, because the beauty for the liberal is that they can make 100% commitment to a radical position and it doesn't cost them anything. So it's not like they're coming in and they're saying, okay, if we register your guns or if we do a background check, then as an offset of that, then we're going to reel in government spending or government overreach, or we're going to stop pushing the National Education Association on everyone. So that's a, hey, give and take. Okay, we're not going to take your guns, but we're going to do this. We're going to register. They're not even giving us a secondary option to say, okay, if you do this, then we'll give you this. They're not giving us anything. So they have absolutely nothing to lose. So whenever they come in and they say, okay, well, we're going to take your guns, we're going to make you register them. Oh, no, we're just going to do a background check. They haven't lost anything. So the inability for the conservative and the Republican to actually hold that in check, that's the problem, because we don't understand that it's happening. See, what they're doing is they're shooting for the moon. Even if they miss, they still are getting more than they came with. And so now we have the extremism and the incrementalism that is taking the American way of life inch by inch, and we're allowing them to do it because we don't really understand that that's what they're doing. Because what happens is the liberal and the leftists and the Democrats, they've got everything to gain. They've got nothing to lose. And so whenever we are interacting with them in a way as if they have something to lose, well, we're at a disadvantage. So now whenever we're looking and we go back and we say, okay, whenever we're faced with a confrontational situation, now we've got what? 4 bullet points. We've got an understanding that a conservative by nature is at a disadvantage in debate. Boom. You put that in the feather in your cap, right? Now you have the understanding that the liberal and the leftists have no other objective except for control of whatever it is that they touch. However they can do it, They've got no conscience to keep them from lying, cheating, stealing. Remember, as long as they don't get caught. So now we go into the actual view of the conflict, positive, negative, and the way that they actually bully their way into asking for the moon, and then they settle for that little inch. So as we start to unravel this a little bit more, then what we'll do is we'll be better equipped and better prepared for what it is that we're going to be faced with when we get into these type of discussions. Now, I'd love to still get you guys' response on what type of questions that you may have. DanTheManCongress.com. Again, we're the only campaign that's going to take the time to actually delve into the groundwork of what it takes to combat what it is that we're faced with. And the way that we're going to be able to do that is to unravel and to reverse engineer what it is that's happening. We break it apart and we put it to its most foundational premise, and then we build upon it. So right now what we're doing is we're going to build a solid foundation, and that gives us an understanding of who we are as people who are in a debate or in a controversial situation, and who it is that our opponent is. So if you guys have any questions, love to hear from you at DanTheManCongress.com, and we'll wrap it up for that one. That was another chapter, and it had some good meat and potatoes in it, and look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Introducing all new, safe, natural relief. A cannabinoid-rich, clarity and focus formula with 17 essential supplements. When it matters most, you've got a job to do. Anxiety isn't an option. Programmed to keep you moving. A product exclusively manufactured for Active Duty RX by Cantech Labs.
Hey everybody, Todd Tucker here. Are you tired of Big Mobile making deals with dirty DC politicians to amplify liberals and silence conservatives like you? Do you want the same quality of service that you get from your current provider without supporting leftist, anti-American subversives like Kendra Horn and Nancy Pelosi? Well, Patriot Mobile can help you, and they can make a great deal. Ask what Patriot Mobile can do for you, and ask what Patriot Mobile can do for your country. Call Patriot Mobile today at 877-367-7524. 877-367-7524. Be a patriot. Join Patriot Mobile.
I've been told that there's something about me that ain't like everybody else. I can't figure it out. My man. Long time ago, in a remote village on the border of Pakistan, I had just completed a raid of a house. And inside of it, we found 4 guys with a lot of ammunition and a lot of weapons that they weren't supposed to have. They were bad guys. And after my guys were prosecuting the search, we had them all taped up. They were going to be brought back to the rear. I went over by a wall because I was a platoon leader. And I started looking at my map, and I started planning what's the next step? What's the next plan for this patrol? And a little 15-year-old kid, 14, 15-year-old Pashto kid came up to me, and he squatted down, and he stared right in my face. And he goes, in English, do you urinate on the Quran? What are you talking about, man? Come on. A couple things hit me. One, it's in English. This is in Afghanistan. People speak Pashto. I'm not supposed to speak English. And before I could really think about what was going on, he said the second question. He goes, do you photograph women? This guy's a stupid kid. What are you asking me these questions for? But his face was intense. His face was, he wanted to know the truth. He wanted to know if that's what I did. And then it hit me a couple seconds later, this kid, his brain's not his own. This guy grew up in a culture that has been teaching him something that's not true. So much so that whenever he gets to see the infidel, he gets to see what the enemy looks like to his face, he asks me what's true. And when I told him, no, I don't do those things, that's not who I am, that's not what I stand for, that's not what I'm over here doing, he did not believe me. And the idea is pretty simple. There gets to be a point when people, their mind isn't their own. And if you have a culture that bakes it into you, that is so thoroughly evil and so thoroughly perverted and twisted, that I don't care who you are, how educated you are, or what role you play. If you come from that culture, you're not going to know truth when it speaks it to your face. And I'm thinking about this kid as I talk about this today, and I say, well, how does this relate? So I'm going to talk to you about freedom. I want to talk to you about freedom in a way that I don't think anyone's ever talked to you about. But before I do that, I think it's necessary that I state my bias. Because if someone's going to be talking to me about freedom, I want to know what their opinions are. I want to know what makes them think that they're so good that they can talk to me about freedom, right? What's your background? I believe in Jesus Christ. But I don't just believe that he's the Lord Almighty. I believe that that is the only path to salvation. Which means that I believe in the Bible, which means that I believe in a loving God, which means I believe in a merciful God, which means I believe in an all-powerful God. Now, why am I saying this? It's because you can go through life and recognize a whole lot of different things, but freedom comes from God. Freedom is a gift from God. Let me say that again. Freedom is a gift from God. And God, the things that he gives are good, and the things that he gives can't be taken away. So here's what I want to say is, when you realize that freedom is a gift, it changes the way that you think about everything. Because it has to. For example, this is a Turning Point USA event, right? Turning Point likes to talk about capitalism, free market capitalism, First Amendment, Second Amendment, limited government, Constitution, right? These are the things that make America great. Are we in agreement? Like this is right? Okay. But why are those things good? Okay, because they empower you. Okay, but why is it good to be empowered? But why is freedom good? Who gave it to you? See, the basis of capitalism, let me get nerd real fast. The basis of capitalism is that each and every one of us has the right to trade, which means that we can participate with whomever we want to participate. And whenever you tell me that I can't talk to you or I can't talk to anybody else, then you're doing something that you're not allowed to do. So the basis of free market capitalism is the fact that image bearers of God can freely interact because they're image bearers of God. And you can't take that away from me. Slavery isn't wrong because of skin color. Slavery is wrong because it's one image bearer of God trying to control another image bearer of God. And the idea is so powerful that whenever you start to see that other people are image bearers of God, it completely changes the way that you think, not only about yourself, but you think about them. And then you get to start thinking about all these other things that our founders were so smart when they put that in the Constitution. Why did they do that? Because they all recognized that God exists, he loves us, and that freedom is a gift because it can't be taken away. Now, my son's in this audience, and over the past couple days, we've spent going through D.C., doing the D.C. thing, seeing the Constitution, the Declaration, all these other things. And what's funny to me is that these things are etched in stone. These ideas are etched in stone. But more importantly than that, the Bible says that this is etched in our hearts. The moral law, the love of other people, the reason why you don't want to kill somebody is because you recognize that no matter how much you don't like that person is made in the image of God. You don't steal because you know that that's not yours. Now, why is that? I bring this up because America was founded on the idea that we are free, that freedom is a gift. And then in the 21st century, I believe that there is something going on that is already present, that's already happening, where we have a culture where tens of millions, probably hundreds, maybe 100 million Americans have grown up in a culture that has imprisoned their mind. And they don't see freedom like that. They don't see freedom for what it is. They don't see it as a gift. They see it as an illusion that can be defined by someone else. And that's the stick. When you see freedom as a gift from God, everything else flows. Well, the opposite's true too. Because if you don't see freedom as a gift, then it can be whatever you want it to be. It can be whatever someone else tells you it is. And there's a lot of Americans today that believe lies. And when those lies are presented to them as truth, to their face, as fact, they do not have the minds to recognize the power of that truth. They do not then transition into liberation because the truth isn't good to them. The truth is bad to them. And so they don't have minds to even pick up what is true and what is absolute. So here's our challenge for the day. Here's our challenge for this country going forward. How do you deal with people who cannot understand what is true and what is good because their minds have imprisoned them? That's a big challenge. Luckily, the Bible has some answers. The Bible's got some answers. It's easy to do this whenever you recognize that freedom is a gift because everyone is an image bearer of God, has a secret code written inside of them, a thumbprint that God's put on them. And because God's put this fingerprint on them, you can speak to their soul and move them in such a way that they won't know what's going down. 2 Corinthians 10, Paul writes about we are here to tear down strongholds. Yes. That word in the Greek is okurama. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Right? But it's the only time it's used in Scripture. And it's every belief, presupposition, premise, false belief, false psychology, false lie. And we are to tear it down. Which means that the minds that have imprisoned people, and they think they're free, and they think that they understand the world, we are to destroy that. But we're also supposed to redeem the person. I want to tell a quick story. That same deployment, I was an infantry officer, so my job was to close with and destroy the enemy by means of fire maneuver, which means we get really close to the bad guys and shoot them in the face. That's what we do. America's really good at it, by the way, and they're not. But this story, I had an Afghan politician come up to me and says, I want to talk to people. Okay. This is Afghanistan. You don't have radio, you don't have television, you don't have internet. Their roads are dry riverbeds. Like they don't have roads, they have dry riverbeds. It's how am I going to talk to people? He goes, round them up. Talking about round them up. He's like, go through the market and round them up. Can we do that? Okay. So here I am, 24-year-old Jaron Jackson, American from Podunk, Oklahoma, rounding Bubba's up. Just rounding people up. I'd come up to a shop and be like, yo, close down, let's go. No, I'm not going to do it. Let's go. And so I was the armed thug. I was the power. I was the jackboot of the government, forcing these people to go where they did not want to go. And shop by shop, door by door, storekeeper by storekeeper, we would round these folks up and we'd push them out into this open area on the outside of the bazaar. And as I was doing it, one by one, I was the big man. Like, let's go, hurry up, za, za, za. Kind of get the baritone and that way people know that you're for real. They don't speak English, but somehow they're going to know that you're talking like this makes it, whatever. Anyway, so we get these guys out there and, going store by store, it wasn't that big a thing. I wasn't intimidated because I got my guns and I got everybody else. And so I had no fear. And then I realized when we got them all out to the side, when we got them all out, there was like 5,000 of them. 5,000 people. And there was about 30 of us. Do the quick math. That's a lot to a little, right? And even if things like went down and started getting hairy and we just started pumping bullets into them, there'd be too many of them. And then they would overwhelm us. There's 3 words at the beginning of the Constitution, the preamble. We the people. That's a story I think about when I think about that phrase. Because those people, they grew up in a culture where their minds aren't their own. So they had all the power. And they're just right there. And not a one of them refused. Not a one of them said anything. Not a one of them recognized the power and the potential and the opportunity that they had. But those of us with the guns, oh yeah, we knew what was up. We didn't want to do anything to instigate them. We didn't want to do anything to turn them against us. We didn't want to do anything to make these people mad. And that was one of the most scary moments of my life, because you're looking at 5,000 people who already don't like me. I already stick out. So I'm used to sticking out in a crowd, if you know what I'm saying. So they already don't like me. They're already against me. So the point is that that's a culture that they don't understand freedom. That's a culture where every single person is a slave in their own mind. They're imprisoned in their own mind, and they don't have the ability to break through, because that culture doesn't have a mechanism to bring people into recognizing that God gives freedom. That is a country that does not say, we are free. That's a country that says, okay, you want me over here? Okay, what you want me to do next? Now I look at a lot of people. My 8-year-old son, I'm raising 3 children in this world. I'm trying to teach them about Jesus. I'm trying to raise them the right way. I'm trying to bring them up as Oklahoma Sooner fans. I'm trying to do a lot of different things. Sooner! I'm trying to do a lot of different things. And one of the challenges that I see is that people have this belief that God must be out of the discussion. Let me say something. The gospel doesn't need government to grow. You see, in John chapter 6, whenever Jesus fed the 5,000, what they want to do? Hey, let's make this guy king. What did Jesus do? He backed up. When they tried to make Jesus a political leader, he said, I don't want any part of it. Which means the gospel doesn't need government to do what it does. The gospel needs you to do what you've been commanded to do. Now, see, there's a lot of people in this country that try to separate God. Separation church and state, separation church and state, separation church and state, separation church and state. You can't talk about God, right? Okay. I don't want government to shove Christianity down anybody's throat, because I don't want to do that. You either are or you aren't, right? But you can't get our government, you can't get freedom without God. Where do you get free speech? Where do you get your life? Where do you get this empowerment? Why does it have value? Why should you want it? Why is slavery a bad thing? Genesis 1 answers all these. You are image bearers of God, and because of that, you are commanded and made for freedom. Not such that you should do whatever you want, but that you have a duty and a responsibility to live up. And here's one of the great things that I think this generation has that is unique in American history, world history. We have a culture and a society that is godless, that is becoming self-indulgent in whatever it wants. Let's go do this guy with this. Let's go, I'm a girl today. Whatever. All these things. Suicide is rampant. A lot of my friends from the military have committed suicide. Why? Because whenever they get out, they don't have a purpose. They don't know what they were made for, and they're a misfit toy. They're a tool without a job. They're someone without the skillful hand that's supposed to be good and used for something else. And this is our opportunity. We can talk about capitalism. We can smash Democrats all day long. We can talk about how there are evil ideas that we need to trounce, and we do. We destroy the idea, we redeem the person. That's the opportunity we have. That is the unique opportunity, because this is the first time in American history where there's a whole lot of free people that, because they think the way that they do, they don't know what to expect and they don't know where to go. So they use division, they use anger, they use jealousy. Kids are committing suicide, people are overdosing with drugs. They're products of broken homes, and so their expectations of marriage is not a covenant, but just a weekend contract, a Vegas style, hey, this was fun while it lasted, but it's not that important anymore. Nah. See, there's a story of a Marine general in Korea, and he's sitting around a table, he's looking at his maps and stuff, and some dude comes up to him and is like, "Sir, the Chinese have invaded, we're surrounded." And he goes, "Good, they won't get away from us now." That's where we are. That's where we are. Because we have the country where we can say we are free. We are the country that says that God gave us freedom, and we're the first people that says that's the case. Every other country in the history of the world has been predicated on the idea that someone's smart or someone's rich or someone's descended from God or whatever. They've been all based on a lie, and because of that, the greater majority of people have lived in poverty and slavery and depression and no hope. I don't know about y'all, but Jesus says that he came that we might have life and that we might have it. That's right. I'm not a slave to fear. I'm not afraid of what's next because I'm coming from victory, not for victory. The battle has been won. Let me nerd out real fast. There's a word called evangelist, right? And I'm not a televangelist. I'm not saying none of that stuff. But evangelist, that word in the Greek means bringer of news, right? Someone who brings good news. And the situation is everyone is holed up and they've got the gates closed and there's a battle outside. And everyone's scared because they don't know who's going to win. The guy who is the evangelist is the person that came and said, we won. Victory is ours. The good thing about that is that nobody in the town did anything to win the battle. The battle's been won. So what do? You go tell other people about it. You go spread that message. So when I look at this country, when I look at what we're doing, I don't think about what's next. I don't think about who's, this or that or that. I think about what's basic. What's basic is that we are free. When someone comes up and says Medicare for all and government take over, what's your response? We are free. When someone says you can't post what you want on social media and tries to block your videos and says you're black, you can't think like that, what's your response? We are free. When someone comes up and says, you know what? You're not supposed to do this because we have a cycle of poverty. You say, man, I'm a chain breaker. You know what I say? We are free. The whole point of this, conference, the whole point of the values that we stand for is because we were made for something greater than the despair and the poverty and the sickness and the low, sluggish crap that we have right now. Because we were made for something better. We have freedom and we can fight back. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And remember, we are free.